Hey guys, it's Stephen Werner with Lawn Buddy, and today I'm super excited to jump into our next masterclass with the man, the myth, the legend, Chad Sundrum with New Look Companies. I've known Chad for a long time. He's a fellow Marine Corps veteran.
Hoorah!
So but also a business owner of New Look Companies, like I previously said, that is really big here in Wichita, Kansas. But also he's done work all across the United States. I've known Chad since the very beginning of Lawn Buddy. He's someone who's helped mold the technology, but also a user of it. So Chad, thank you so much for joining us today.
Man, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Glad to be here. And Lawn Buddy is amazing. It's really helped me with everything that we've done. I mean, ever since you started this thing, man, it's really helped our business grow, and we really appreciate the back office stuff that it helps us with, and all the new stuff that's always coming out and making our job easier. It's definitely a good situation for everybody.
Oh, Chad, you're gonna make me blush. But today is not about us, right? Today is about you. And so why don't you give us a little bit of history of New Look Companies, when you got started, how you grew, and a little bit of what you're doing today.
Long story. I don't know if we have time for all that, but I'll give you a quick intro. We started in 2008. We kind of fell into the landscape business. Prior to doing this, I was contracted for Walmart. Moved back to Kansas and wasn't sure what I was going to do. The housing market kind of busted. We were doing a lot of foreclosures. Everybody was out of work, getting in people's houses, and that's how I kind of fell into the landscape business, because we started doing a lot of landscaping and stuff for the foreclosure companies. That's really how I started. An old sheriff buddy of mine was retiring, got me introduced into the foreclosure deal, and from there he said, "Hey man, I'm about to dip out. Would you like to take over what we're doing in the Wichita area?" And we kind of just took it and ran with it, and it was really mom and pop prior to when I got in, and then when I got in, we kind of took it more commercialized, and that's when we grew, and we did about 70% of the foreclosure stuff here in the area for a lot of years. And since then, we've just kind of grown to, anywhere from, 10 or 15 trucks going at any given time, to where we were doing stuff in Oklahoma, Kansas City, Colorado, Nebraska. Just whatever they recommended or asked us to do, we did it. I mean, and from there on, we've kind of scaled back here in the Wichita area to where we've still got several crews going on in the area, but we focus more on doing other things, as far as, we're not as doing foreclosures anymore. We're doing more landscape, more trees, focusing on doing a lot of fences and stuff, everything that kind of goes with the outdoor landscaping deal. And so that's kind of where we're growing at right now. And ever since Lawn Buddy's come in, it's really helped us do a lot of project guesstimation and things like that. It's been a lot easier. Referrals have been a lot better. We've gotten a lot of work off of Lawn Buddy. Technology is really a big driver for everything that we're doing now. Yeah.
Heck of a thing. Yeah. So I want to dive into two things that you talked about. So forgive my third grader handwriting. So landscaping and trees, right? So if we were to dive in, I know probably when you first got started in conversations we've had previously, you were kind of just you do anything and everything.
Anything and everything.
But when you're looking at the landscaping, and we'll use an example now for fertilizer, right? It's spring.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what would you recommend to some of the smaller companies just starting out on how you do like your job costing, or how you stay competitive with some of the big boys that are in town that are bidding super low, and then talk about some ways that they're leveraging the loss leader in doing a lower price maybe on fertilization and jacking up the landscape.
Not to sound corny, but I'd definitely get on Lawn Buddy. And I would use your programs, your Google mapping and guesstimation and all that stuff, so you can plot out your areas, get your square footage on what you're going to do. Get with your local suppliers as far as either Garden Wise or Kramer, whoever's gonna sell you your fertilizer and stuff. Get your costs down. Figure out what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do it, what equipment you're gonna use. Are you gonna still stay small and use hand spreaders, or are you gonna make the jump and buy the ride-ons? I mean, how big and how much are you doing? I guess if you go back to the beginning of that, your first thing, you may make sure you got your license.
Yeah, yeah.
Make sure you got your pest control and landscape license. I mean, that definitely you're gonna need before you get hemmed up by somebody driving around or another local landscape company that is looking to take over your business. Not to jab at people, but that, you know, you've got a lot of people in the area that do that.
Yep.
Bigger guys especially, they get a little upset when smaller guys are coming in and taking a dent out of what they're doing, and that's how they also are bidding low. They go in and they bid a job for an HOA or something like that for an extremely low price, you know, thousands below what normal people or cost should be, and then they turn around and they jack it up on something else. They make up for the cost.
Yeah, so
Definitely.
you said something that was really, really good, and I wanted to stop you for a second. So essentially what they're doing, especially for you guys that are going out and you're bidding against these larger companies, right, is they're going in for like the fertilization aspect. They're doing it cost just to get that contract. But then what Chad was saying is they're gonna inflate their prices for the irrigation or landscaping to where
Right.
they're making their money back. It's just they're coming in with what's called the loss leaders. They're not making a whole bunch of money off of one job, but they're inflating their costs on the others. And it's a great tactic when you go in to compete with other folks, and something I know you've done.
There's a lot of startup companies that are also doing that. And there's a lot of smaller guys. I mean, like you said, you've got to go in and you've got to start out somewhere. So you might go out and you start mowing these lawns for $25 a lawn, knowing that you can't make it on $25 a lawn. I know that there's a lot of startup companies in the local area last year that did the same thing. As the virus hit, everybody is trying to do something, everybody's laid off. Admirable for them to get a lawnmower and go out and start doing something. They don't have insurance. They don't know the cost of stuff. They don't have the overhead for the labor. They don't have work comp. They go in, they bid it $25. And we were running into this quite a bit. And they would last for about, you know, a couple months, and then it would get hot out like most landscapers, like, oh man, it sucks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would lose it, and then, you know, the customer would come to you and say, hey, can you do it for this price? Sorry, I can't do it for that price because this is what my cost is. This is how much I've got to have. This is what I got to pay my employees. This is the insurance I covered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and the costs go on.
Yeah.
Well, you know, $40, $45, $55, depending on the size of whatever the lawn is. Get on Lawn Buddy, guesstimate it, see how big it is, see what you got to have, put your numbers in, all your filters, and figure out, you know, what your cost is going to be per that lawn, per your man hours, per everything. It's just a cutthroat business out here. I mean,
Yep.
all in all.
Yeah, and Chad's really dropping some good knowledge bombs, right? So essentially what he's saying is when you're going out, right, you need to know your costs. I mean, we all know that, but like your time costs money, your insurance costs money, your employees cost money. So making sure you know all that and you go in is great, not only for your knowledge, but when you're talking to your homeowners, right? So that way you can educate them and say, listen, we have insurance. I guarantee you don't want a rock going through your window, and the kid that was down the street that's doing it for $25 just skips town, and then you're stuck paying for the window. It's funny, but it's true.
Yeah,
it happens.
yeah.
It happens all the time.
It does.
And so you need to know your job's cost, and you need to know how you can effectively communicate that to your homeowner. So that was one example on the landscape side. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Definitely, especially nowadays, in this particular time, you've got to go out. Don't go off of whatever last year's prices were or the year before that or whatever you think that your set prices have been, because costs are up on everything. Production is down on a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, the availability for things like, you know, fencing and things like that have been real tough. Fertilizer, everything has went up. I mean, your gas has obviously went up. So your prices are going to change and fluctuate, and everything's going up. And,
Yep.
you know, I do have a lot of customers calling me this year, hey, are you going to increase your prices? I know things are going up. And everybody has been pretty cool if you got to go up by another $5.
Mm-hmm.
And they understand. And even though it sucks to have to pay that extra money for them, they understand, because if you don't do it, you can't provide it.
Yep.
I mean, so you know, you've got to communicate with your customers. You got to work with everybody, and most of the time, 90% of the time, everybody's understanding.
Yep.
Um,
One
so-
thing that Chad does really well is he understands his market conditions, right? So every time he goes out and bids a job, he's looking at the cost of the material and the labor that he's going to put on it. And that's something that, back to his point, you can't just do from last year. You have to do that for every job that you go and look at because, wood is up, fertilizer's up. Did the price of sod go up at all?
Sod's gonna go up. Water's going up as far, especially here in this area, everybody's taxing stuff more. They're putting in the new water, treatment plant, so, taxes went up on that. So, the availability is down. And everybody's prices are up. The local sod shops, all their seeds went up, all their fertilizer stuff has went up. Their equipment costs more. All those big tractors, all the sod cutters, all that stuff has all went up. And so, they've got to increase their prices. I think last year, my prices went up by 20 cents, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you add that up, 19 pallets of sod, that's a lot.
Yep.
So you do have to definitely, check everything all the time. Your insurance has probably went up because of all the extracurricular activities going on out here now. So yeah.
Yep.
Every job, I try to, if it's not something that we're doing every day, which most of the stuff you do every day, but if it's not something that you're up to speed on, get on the app or get on your Google and Google that and check your prices at your local stores or your box stores or wherever you're going to get your stuff from and see what your prices are going to be. That way you can adjust it correctly.
Yep, absolutely. So the other thing that I wanted to hit on, I wrote down trees up there, right? So one thing that I've seen you do over the last several years that's been fantastic, right, is identify additional revenue streams when you're out on the client's property. I know you just got into the tree game a year or two ago, but could you tell folks a little bit about that and how you got into it and how that's helped you as a business?
Kind of like a lot of everything. Being a jack of all trades when you're into the landscaping business is really pertinent to what you're doing because a lot of these customers out here want tree trimming or tree planted or, your landscaping and stuff like that. Put your plants, do your mulching, do all your weed control, gutters. It's all relative to what we do. And so they want a one-stop shop. And so that's really kind of, in the beginning I was like, oh, I don't really know if we could do that, I didn't want to take on the liability. Also with the insurance. You got to pay a little extra if you tell them that you're doing tree service, because then you've got way more liability. So then you can't just go and say, oh, I'm going to trim this tree for $100. Now you've got to, play with the big boys and be in the same game and up that up. But that's something that customers want. They want the tree trimming, they want all that stuff. And so going from landscaping into the trees, you've already got most of the equipment. You've got the trailers, you've got the trucks. A lot of you guys have dump trailers, chainsaws, etc. And it just makes sense. Get with somebody that's maybe a bigger company or somebody that's willing to teach you a little bit, which there are guys out there that are willing to teach. Some guys are old school and hard-headed and they don't want to mess with it. But somebody will teach you the pricing, somebody will teach you how to do it, make sure you know how to do all your right cuts and stuff like that. Figure out what your costs are.
Yep.
Learn how to bid it. Don't underbid yourself.
Absolutely. The one thing that we talked a little bit about in fertilization, and I know you've done in the past with tree removal, is some of these bigger outfits, right? They have the gigantic equipment that can get in and get out. So let's say that you've got a customer who has a set budget that doesn't fit into what your prices are. Could you talk a little bit about subcontracting that out and then doing a small markup on there so that you still profit as a company?
So a lot of the times what we'll do is sometimes we'll have a customer that has a 50, 60, 70-foot tree that they want done, and not all the time were we able to, in the beginning, take care of that for them. So then being in the game, and most guys like us know a lot of other people that are in the same field, and we know our competition. We know the other tree guys. We know the other landscapers. get with somebody that you're familiar with or that you're comfortable with that, you know, might be a little bigger than you and have the equipment, you know, have the bucket trucks, have the skid steers or the dingos or whatever that you don't have, the big 3-foot wheel stump grinders. And you say, hey, you know, if I come across a customer that I'm taking care of that has X that needs done, can I mark that up 10 or 15% and still make my cut off of it and get the job done so that everybody is happy? You can retain your customer, you build a relationship with the other people, and you make a little money, and everybody is happy. So I mean that's a real big deal is you know, finding somebody that you can work with locally or keep in your back pocket. Normally a lot of the guys, and you probably already have one that's a buddy of yours that will do that, but you've just never explored that avenue because you want to keep yours and he wants to keep his. Well, sometimes, you know, it takes teamwork to make the dream work.
Yep.
And so everybody's got to work together and keeps your customer happy and keeps everybody. And then next thing you know, your customer hits you up and says, hey, a buddy of mine needs his tree done. Well, okay, cool. And then it just keeps going, word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth. So
Yep.
it all works out in the end. You just have to find out who you're going to team up with to make it work for everybody.
Yep. That gets to a point that someone told me a long time ago, right? And it's to when you encounter a problem or an opportunity, right? Stay curious, right? Think of ways that you could complete the task without doing just what you've done the entire time, right? And ask questions. Always be asking questions. So that kind of wraps up a lot of what I wanted to talk about today. I know you dropped a bunch of knowledge for all of our men and women out there in the lawn and landscape industry, so I want to thank you for your time. I didn't tease you a single time throughout this entire recording, so I'm proud of myself. I can sleep good tonight. But what I wanted to ask one last question. Did you hear about 30 seconds ago what just happened?
Earthquake?
No, Lady Liberty released a flock of eagles, and they just screamed America when they flew overhead.
Oh, I heard it.
Yep, that's what they call it in Freedom Ring.
Is that what they do?
Yep, I think so.
See, I learn something every day.
You're welcome.
You're
That's
an
what I'm
ocean
here
of
for.
knowledge, Stephen.
Thank you.
You are.
I'm just deep, you know. I'm woke and I'm deep.
You are. You are. Very.
So that'll probably get cut out. But thank you guys for tuning in to this week's masterclass. We hope you have a great time. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment below or send us an email. We'll see you out there.